Good morning, all. This is the Foundation Grants Q&A. So we're going to be able to answer some questions. I'm Howard Svigals, and I'm the District Foundation Chair, and I'm the support person for this presentation today. Bob Zawilski, the District Grant Chair, will be leading the question and answer. But with no further ado, I will introduce Bob as our host today for leading this session.
A couple of things before we get started. One of the things we have this year that is new and unique is the COVID-19 grants. And the intent for those was to be able to fund for backdated receipts, if you would. A couple of points on these. They do require club qualification. They need a club MOU. They need a trained person. We are dealing with foundation money, so all of those foundation rules apply. Either grant can count as the first round, so you cannot do both of them in the first round. Does not require a project MOU with the beneficiary. The match is up to 1,000. Very limited application required on that. It could start and could have been already started. It's an automatic early start. We do need a project report, publicity plan, and receipts. There's no Rotary participation required. So the way I look at this and what I've been telling folks is, if you're in a situation where you have not spent any money yet, you can get a project MOU and you can involve Rotarians, then I would go for the larger match. You could do it just as a regular grant and ask for an early start. So as an example, if you could do a COVID grant with grab and go food bags, but if you could get a project MOU signed by the beneficiary, the agency, which should not be hard, and you have not spent any money yet, and you can get the Rotarians to go over there and pack some of the bags, then you qualify for the larger match. If there are questions on this, are there any while I'm on the slide? Oh, and also it can be international. There's a number of clubs that are doing international as well.
How early is early start going to be on the normal district grants?
Well, they're the early start criteria on a normal district grant. Well, first of all, let me back up. If it's COVID related, it could be as soon as it's approved. If it is a regular grant to do build a building somewhere, the early start criteria is if it's essential to the timing on that. Typically, we want them to start on July 1. We started or began the early start to accommodate over the summer projects like summer nutrition, summer literacy, or in the case of if you're going into a company or a country, for example, the one example we had was they were going in to plant trees, and the rainy season, to get it in before the rainy season, they needed an early start. So that answer that?
Well, I guess the second piece is how soon will approvals be granted for early starts COVID?
As soon as you get that in there.
Okay.
You know, we need, you know, the key things you have to do there are the project MOU with the beneficiary. That's the main thing.
Right, but I've got one that you passed through to Howard, and it'll be approved shortly then?
The one, I believe yours was a regular COVID grant for $1,000 match.
Oh, no, it was a regular district grant.
I'll have to take a look at it.
Okay. No worries. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, right now we've got 25 in for next year, and I'm dealing with 70 for last year. Okay, the COVID grant categories that we showed are simply a subset of the definition we use for the community grants, the humanitarian definition. A couple of things that have come up, and let me just deal with this one here first. One of the biggest issues I see is problems handling grant receipts. And my suggestion is when you put together your budget, you begin putting together the structure for the final reporting. So in this really simple example here, I'm building a shed. So in my budget, I have line items for the cement, lumber, hardware, paint, and roofing. As the receipts come in, you number them consecutively. And then if you bought $100 worth of lumber, you would put receipt 1, $100 worth of lumber under lumber, physically label the receipt number 1, and then upload that to the documents tab. For an international grant, it's really important that you convey to the people on the other end how it is you're going to be finally reporting this so that they could structure the grants appropriately.
I wanted to just share with everybody, both Bob obviously reviews all this, and in many cases I review them too, but we actually have a third party. We're required by the foundation to use a certified public accountant or a chartered accountant to actually review all of the expenditures and all the money spent on behalf of the foundation. So there's a third party person who is actually reviewing all this documentation, all the receipts and everything. And that's one of the reasons that we ask you to be clear what you're doing and be able to display it the way that we ask it. Is useful for Bob and I, but it's most useful for our independent auditor.
And you bring up a good topic, Howard. Some of the questions we had dealt with how could we get more money for this year, and the suggestion was made that we cut out the foundation overhead. And the only overhead we have with the district designated funds is that audit that Howard just mentioned. It was $1,900 last year. The rest of the funds for the foundation committee work come from a budget that we have within the district budget. This year, in terms of what we're going to get in terms of money, there was a question of, has this whole situation reduced the amount? And no, it hasn't, because it's based on the giving from 3 years ago. We know what that number is. What we don't know to get to our final number is how much we'll receive from bequests that were made to the foundation, with the provision that 50% of their earnings go to the district designated funds. So we should be somewhere around 200,000. Right now, we have about half of that committed already. So there's roughly 100,000 left. Another question we had was, well, what's the date for the second round opening? And we don't know that. It depends on two factors. One factor is the flow of grant requests we see. You know, that at some point they slow down considerably. And the other is our ability to get the spending plan done to send to the foundation. We have to have 80% of the funds committed to actual projects. We could put in a buffer for the other 20. So we're balancing between, has the first round really slowed down enough so that we could get additional grants in there to meet our spending plan and get the money so that we can reimburse you. And I think that was all I had for the questions ahead of time. What else do you have?
This year, in past years when we've done district community grants, there has always been a publicity aspect in the application itself. I didn't see one this year. That seems just the opposite of the session I left an hour ago, which was about promoting Rotary image. Is there a reason that happened, or does anybody know?
Well, I had put it in there in the application part. I'll take a look at that when we get done.
Okay, good.
I don't want to try and pull it up because I don't have that.
Sure, absolutely. But we got a great project this year. We can do great publicity, and I want to get it in there.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we also want in the COVID grants too. So the COVID grants, we also want to make sure you do some form of publication or publicize.
Yeah,
Yes.
mine goes to, maybe it's a little further down. The foundation money sounds fine and everything seems to be in shape. But I'm wondering about in the room about people's fundraising on the other side. I've got a couple of applications ready to go, you know, depending on the choice between COVID-19 and the full district community grant. I've done all my consultations with the people that we're dealing with in Guatemala. That's easy to do, but what I'm waiting for right now is our club has had a big problem with its own fundraising, which is the other half of the funds. And our partner clubs have faced the same problem. Because the COVID-19 shut down major fundraisers in March, April, May. And so I'm wondering how that is impacting people. I hear that you said that about half, or a good half of the 200K had already been accounted for. But I'm just concerned about that aspect. That's causing me a lag in terms of my completing the application. Or should I just go ahead with the application and then withdraw?
You can go ahead with the application. I would ask you, if you do that, don't just let it linger there. If you find out, you know, shortly that you can't do it, withdraw it. Because where we are now in the current year, there's probably going to be about 10,000 or so that's not used. Just a rough, and a lot of that comes about from, at this time of the year, I finally get a report on a grant and find out that they underspent. So now we have extra money, but there's not time to spend it.
Yeah, understood. I may adopt that strategy just because of the reality that we're facing here in a number of some other clubs. Thanks very much.
I agree that's a real issue this year. A very small new club told me that, you know, they want to do something. They could raise about $500. And so we talked about the COVID grant and doing that. Although I told them if you could just get donations from the members, for every dollar you get donated, you can end up spending $2 on a project because of the fact that you'll get it reimbursed by the foundation or through the district grant. So it's a challenge, yes. Pretty much everybody's fundraisers are down. Some clubs have got rainy day funds, so you could use some of that. But we are challenged this year, and we recognize that.
Just to give you one perspective, within the MIG group, the Mid-Island group, there were some clubs that even were raising the question whether they could pay their $650 MIG fee. So that our club is not in that position, but that shows how hard it might be. Thanks.
And some clubs, I know our club is going to be doing a virtual auction. I think Gig Harbor did that too. Howard, do you have any information on the Gig Harbor one? Because that's
they ended up raising $90,000. In a normal year, they raised about 150, but they were very successful.
Thank you for that. We're looking at those kinds of options as well, for sure, but just facing the current reality until all that happens.
They've asked what sort of grace will be done on the current grants due to the situation of the pandemic.
Well, what we had said was we could extend into next year the actual work on it. What we need this year is the receipts so that we can complete our report, because in addition to having 80% committed to get the money for next year, we have to have an accepted report this year. That makes sense? As an example, there is one in Kelso, I don't know if you're on here, where they have a holdup because of the construction holdup, but they have already bought some things for a playground. So we could at least, you know, reimburse that portion for them, or if they prepaid for something. But we do need the receipts by the end of this year, and then the completed report whenever it's finished next year.
Another question here, again, a little bit touched on, is the following up for the annual fund, the effect it has on the monies and what it will affect this year. And Bob, you've answered that and before, so maybe you just repeat that answer about the fact that this year's money is not yet impacted.
Yeah, this year's money is not impacted. We know what it is. It's a portion of the Paul Harris giving from 3 years ago. What we don't know is the exact number because there are some bequests that have been made to the foundation where the person making the bequest indicated that they want to share part of the earnings with the district. And that's something that if you're making a bequest, when you fill it out, you know, that's one of the options to check the box.
So there's risk in 3 years from now, well, if the donations are down, it'll clearly impact our grants in 3 years, but we're not seeing it yet. Another question here was some more information about the virtual auction. And you know, I'm not actually in the Gig Harbor Club and another Gig Harbor Club, but I participated in it. And there are softwares out there that do this, and it allows people to sign up, use their credit card. They put pictures of different activities, pictures of different things that people were willing to donate. And they also put the raise the paddle as a thing that you could bid on in the thing. And they had, you know, about a dozen different raise the paddles for different amounts. And they got a fair amount of contributions where somebody is obviously just donating the money through the raise the paddle type thing online. So there's a way to collect donations. The secret there, of course, was to get the widest distribution of number of people who could access the actual website that had all this information on it. Somebody's asking, Catherine's asking questions about a publicity plan for a grant. What are some of the things that should be in that?
How are you going to tell the community? That's really the important part. How are you going to share with the community what it is Rotary is doing rather than keeping it all to ourselves? So a typical one that I see is they would have some sort of signage to show what it is, if that's possible, some publicity following either a newspaper article or something like that, and then also sharing in the new district magazine. And I don't know if Caleb's on, but what I've asked him to do is in the articles, if it's funded by a district community grant, please mention that so we could try and get more clubs involved in the grant process.
Doug, do you have another question? You raised your hand.
Thank you, Howard. Bob, back to the grace period. Does the commitment continue into year 2 if you send in your partial report in year 1?
Well, we will need a final report just to wrap that up. So by commitment, that's what the commitment is. The interim report could be just the financial part because we need that information. The actual report on completion could go in the next year, and that would not affect your ability to put a grant in for that same year, for next year.
Richard's asking that we remind everybody when the Rotary year ends, and this year, like every other year, it seems like it's a forever problem here right now, but it will end June 30th. So and that's the district grants have to take place within a Rotary year. If we extend them, then it delays our money for next year. So that's why we want to be able to get that done moving forward.
Are there any questions on multiple club grants? I mean, there are some people who are doing that consistently, and but there's only been a handful.
So Bob and Howard, this is Marion Spence, John Hink calling from South Africa, joining you this evening. It's evening for us, morning for you. It's really extremely difficult in South Africa. And I urge any member who's listening this evening, if ever they want to think about doing any community grant on an international level or a COVID grant on an international level, to please contact me. Both Bob and Howard have my details, and it would be fabulous to work with one of you in District 5020. You all know me, and should anybody have any of that, thank you for allowing me to speak. Bob, Howard, over to you.
Thank you, and we wish you a safe and healthy area down there. Somebody asked about media reports, and social media does work. And I think Bob mentioned that before. Peter's gone on with some good things about the types of publicity and other things you want to do. Peter, do you want to talk about it yourself on some of the things?
I'll see if I can remember what I wrote. But as the PI guy for my club, I spend a lot of time thinking about that. And for publicity purposes, we have our webpage that we try to keep updated. Stories Link, which is like a blog. 2 Facebook pages. We've got 2 pages that our Interact Club uses that I post on. And then I usually, when we start a project, I run a fact sheet. So I have everybody's name on the fact sheet, all their email addresses, the purpose of the grant, the numbers, and all that kind of stuff. And I stick a copy in my vehicles and in my hip pocket. So when I'm driving around and somebody's got a question, I've got all that stuff right there. It's also on my phone. Then the next thing is, after the fact sheet, is to write a news article for it and blast that out to all the news places around. Try to set up radio interviews. We've got a public TV station up in Port Townsend that we've used occasionally. I'm not yet on Instagram, but I'm working on it. I think that's one of the things that we're going to learn later on today, actually, in the afternoon. And that kind of stuff. Just try to keep a range of different publicity going on the grant. And the way I set it up for our grants is I have a schedule set up, so it's day by day. And I get a little pop-up that tells me, okay, today send the news release. Today you're going to do a Facebook page entry and all that kind of stuff. Lots of pictures to keep Bob happy.
Al has got a question here about stoves, which are no longer eligible for global grants. Are they eligible for district grants? And you might, Bob, you want to touch on that?
Yeah. If you're talking about the propane stoves and such, they're still eligible for the district grant.
Yeah. Global grants, they did determine someplace in midstream, and this is not only propane, but also the fission burning wood stoves that we justified, and many people did it on health because the smoke obviously kept people, but for some guidance that I didn't ask me, they said that you can't justify the health issues. So they've determined for a global grant. A global grant has to fit one of the 6 causes. On a district grant, we just have to, it has to be humanitarian nature, not necessarily fit those 6 grants. So we clearly have a broader scope about it. But I'll share with one, or you want to talk about the feeding the nurses, Bob, about that? How we handled that?
Yeah, well, it was a request for a COVID grant to reimburse the club for pizzas that they took to the emergency room folks. And that really doesn't fit the humanitarian criteria.
Yeah, it's a good thing to do. It was nice to do and things like that. But had you given it to hungry people or people who are out of their jobs and can't afford it, that's humanitarian nature. The nurses and stuff, although it's they're on the front line doing all sorts of hard work for us, we chose not to be humanitarian nature. Somebody's asking a question of where we are in donations for the foundation this year, and we are sizably less. We're hoping that we get a spur at the end, but we're at about $130 per average district member. And the last couple of years, we've been 160 or 170 in that area. Some of that is just year end. A lot of clubs keep their money until the year end and have not forwarded that on yet. So we're hoping that will up it. But again, our foundation is important and contributing. And one of the things we're hoping for, even in tough times now, is that we increase our every return every year. So we've got every member contributing at least the $25. Anybody else want to raise their hand or type in something in the chat room?
How about if I just shout?
You're good at that.
Well, it's the most low-tech way to get in. Just a comment on publicity. One thing, our project this year we hope to do is build gardens for poor people, but our plan is to have a banner at everyone, have a picture taken with the Rotary volunteer team and the people we build the garden for, and provide those pictures to all recipients in the hope that they'll put them on their Facebook, Instagram, and whatnot, and that will exponentially increase our image out there.
Good move. Real good.
A thought on what was asked about the matrix, and I don't know if there's anything that's come out. I have not seen it about not having a community assessment if it's a COVID focused one. And what I'm getting at there with a global grant, you're required to have a community assessment, which takes a fair amount of time to do. You could use district community grant, excuse me, funds to fund the community assessment, but that may make the global grant a much longer reaction time.
Bree's asking, the prime focus is district grants. Now we'll answer questions on both district and global grants. On any significant changes to the global grants and the foundation humanitarian work for the next year and the funding outlook for the TRF. There has not been any real big changes in the foundation global grants. The biggest issue which went into effect and has taken the most time is what Bob was just talking about, is the whole assessment that's got to be done up front. And that area, they've given out a whole booklet on guidance for it and talked about it. So there's a lot of documents available doing it. But on the global grants, that's what's really taking a long time. It's taking, and this is just a swag at it, almost 6 months for our global grants to get approved by the foundation. And most of the work is being done on the assessment. When you do an assessment, they want to know who you're asking, why you're asking those people, why'd you choose that group, what percentage of the people is benefacting for it, how the benefits has been, how you're going to measure it. So there's a lot of work on the assessment. So it's not new this year. It had been put in place last year, but it's clearly taking a significant amount of time and effort in getting a global grant approved. The district grant process is much more simple. I mean, basically it's Bob approval to make it through and the humanitarian. With the global grants, we have a paid professional person in Rotary International who is responsible for making sure all those global grants. They're much sizable, larger dollar amount, so it's important to it. And again, it's also the picture. It requires the 2 clubs. It requires a lot of extra work. So nothing new, but just a increased emphasis on the area. And I think we answered the question about the funding outlook. And the funding right now is okay, but there is some real risk of what's happening on going forward on foundation giving. So we want to obviously encourage everybody to continue giving. And right before this, I had a good presentation on people about getting foundation champions to support the giving.
Well, just to comment on the areas of focus, if you're not familiar with those, they are very, very, very specific. The community grants we have, I don't think any of them would ever fit in the criteria for an area of focus. So if you're looking at that and you think area of focus, well, maternal health, there's a lot more to it than that. I'm sorry, Howard, go ahead.
No, that's a good point. And we're here to help you. There's no question about that. And they've actually created another group of individuals, the Rotarians who have done global grants that are available to be resources to clubs doing it. There's one specialized in each of the causes and also geographically in those parts of the world, including most all of them are bilingual and can help support the grant that way. So there are people that are available to help do that area. The Rotary International Area of Focus Handbook, good point. There's a publication on that too that you can get that will help you explain the 6 areas of focus and how they work and what's happening in each of those areas and how you can do that. Global grants are clearly got great leverage and lots of good stuff, but they're also a lot of work to make sure that you meet all the requirements.
Any feedback, almost afraid to ask this, any feedback on the online training?
Don Mercer here.
Yeah.
I'm still hoping it can be less cumbersome going through each section. That seems to be a problem. I don't know how to specify, but one thing I found at one stage is before you could go to the next session, you had to provide an evaluation of each section. I found that quite frustrating. I'm not sure what is the worth of that. The other thing is a peculiar question that you get every time. Is this your first training? Well, each section is training, but it's all part of the same training program, right? Or this particular program on on the grant process. So, and that yet you're asked the same question in each segment. I don't think that's a very good use of people's time. And I think that that would be very helpful if that were somehow eliminated or consolidated in one area. Because I think that the idea is to get through the course and focus on the course, but in the meantime, you have these interludes of requirements, and maybe that's been improved, that one doesn't have to do the evaluation at each step, but certainly when I was doing, you had to do the evaluation before you could actually complete a segment.
We are on a work group with the e-learning folks at RI and trying to convey to them what the world's like on our side.
Oh, great.
As opposed to theirs. You know, one of the comments I made to them, the landing page should be your dashboard, not the course schedule. So we're trying to get that worked where you could actually sign in and it would recognize you and say, here are the courses, rather than have you go search through them. Anyone else?
Yes, Brent Olson here. Brent Olson here from Bainbridge. Could you kind of give a preview of those training resources that are available, people that are contemplating anything from district community grants, but especially up to the foundation grant, global grants and stuff like this? We used to have a different set of training, and now with COVIDs and everything, we may have to be modifying how people get trained. So could you kind of preview what's available at the foundation and what you hope to be available at the district?
Well, at the district level, we have been doing 2 in-person classes. As you say, I don't know if we'll be doing that this year in Lakewood and Nanaimo. We do have the online. I don't know if you've had any experience with that at the RI Learning Center. So that's what we're using this year for the grant management training.
Larry McGee, you got a question?
Howard, I just want to make a comment. As you know, your prediction of about 6 months seems like it's right on the money to me. We just got that one grant in Mexico approved. The comment I wanted to make that in addition to a tremendous emphasis on the community assessment that you noted, the other end is a much bigger attention on sustainability. So what you might call some of the softer aspects of a project. What are you going to do to collect money in the community to create a maintenance fund? What are you going to do to educate people about hygiene? And so the actual, the physical pipes and wells and pumps, yes, that's important, but I've been in Rotary a long time and I've never seen so much attention to, and I think it's good, to the sustainability. And if you don't have that, you're not gonna get an approval.
Yeah, the famous thing is the fact we don't want a well with a Rotary logo out there that doesn't work.
Exactly.
Brent, you've got a question?
That's another good point with the global grant. It has to be sustainable. So, buying COVID supplies for them, really not going to do that much.
Brent?
No, I think my question on training resources and what your outlook on that is, but I was just trying to think about how do we talk to new people joining Rotary WCS committees in our district? How do we guide them through the process of getting up to speed on everything from the district to the, and we've always had to pay a lot of attention to that. As a former district trainer, we spent a lot of time on that. And I'm just wondering if relying so much on online learning from Rotary International is going to be as reliable going forward. So I'm just kind of asking you for an assessment and think about the new Rotarian wanting to get up to speed in this mysterious world of grants and so forth. How are we coming across to them?
Good point.
Maybe what we should do is schedule periodic Zoom meetings like this for the newer folks to come in and ask their questions. Because I agree with you, just going through that really doesn't give you the information you need.
Donald Hiller, you've got a question?
Yeah, I'm from the Fallsville Club. I was going to ask Bob perhaps could run through for the benefit of people who are attending this session who have not been trained yet and have not gone through the Rotary training. I just did it myself, and it was a little confusing until I got to the page where I saw the listing of courses that I had to take. And just as Don Mercer said, the evaluations at the end of each course were a little cumbersome, annoying, but cumbersome. And I just wondered if you could go through a sort of a step-by-step procedure about how someone new to the international service world could, and what's the first step to get to the training, and both on the district webpage and the international webpage.
Well, a couple of levels of training. If you go to the district website, you'll find a link that'll take you to the RI Learning Center. As I said before, that link is going to take you, the landing page is a course catalog, which is almost meaningless. Go to the upper left-hand corner. There are 3 lines there that are not indicated what they are. Click on that and go to your dashboard, and we have signed everyone in the district up for the online training. On the online training, again, we're working with the RI e-training folks, but as you go through there, make sure you click all the boxes. If there's a download available to you of a document, download it. You don't need to read it, but the system's waiting for you to do that. Other training we have available on YouTube, the District 5020 Grant channel has videos I've done on how to use Club Runner. I've got to update a couple of those. We took Club Runner out of the in-person training because we realized when we train you with that, you probably wouldn't be doing some of the things for 18 months, and Club Runner's hard enough when you're familiar with it.
Pete, did you have another question?
Way back when I started as foundation chair 3 or 4 years ago, I felt I didn't have any knowledge about what the foundation did. So in our club, foundation does grants because the service chair and foundation chair are co-located at the present time until the 1st of July. So I went and read the grant manual, which is that 1000 manual, and then wrote my own instruction to keep track of all the stuff that we're supposed to know. And happy to share that with people if they want it, but I do better with a written word than I do with this newfangled all learning is online, because I don't have any way to go back and see what it was that they were trying to teach me unless I go back and go through the whole video again. So Bob's short videos on the YouTube channel for district are really good, but they are really good if you've really read the grant manual ahead of time and have a clear understanding of what the steps are in doing a grant.
I thank you all. I thank Bob for helping organize this and be able to answer the questions, and obviously for you to participate. Foundations are important. I mean, it really what makes Rotary special. And obviously, you know, some clubs are much more experienced than others, but I thank you all, and Bob and I are available to help answer further questions.